Hello and welcome to the MyHeritage webinar series. I'm Jeff Rasmussen, your host, broadcasting to you live from Middleton, Idaho. Today we have MyHeritage's Ran Sneer with us, who is live at MyHeritage headquarters in Tel Aviv, Israel, to teach us about the brand new tool, DNA labels. People everywhere are talking about it, and Ran is the one behind it all, so it's great to have him here. It's also great to have all of you here. There's more than 1,700 of you from 31 countries who have registered for the live webinar. So wherever and whenever you are, glad to have you with us. Ran Sneer, Director of Product Management, is responsible for MyHeritage DNA products. He leads a talented team of developers, QA engineers, and designers to create and optimize DNA users' entire journey, from ordering a DNA kit, tracking the kit's progress, receiving results, to leveraging a continually growing suite of features to make the most of the DNA results in genealogical research. Most recently, he led the development of the DNA labels feature from concept through production and launch. So please put together your virtual hands and let's give Ran Sneer a nice warm webinar welcome. Hi, Ran, and welcome to the webinar.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much, and great to be back.
Oh, it's always good to have you here.
Everyone.
Yeah. So we've got a great crowd, anxious to learn more about DNA labels here today. And yeah, your screen is looking good. And Ran, the time's all yours. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jeff, and hello, everyone from all over the world. Always great to be back on this platform and sharing with you exciting new things that we're doing at MyHeritage, and especially when I'm speaking, it's usually about DNA, which is my personal favorite, without hurting the others. But today we're going to talk about a new tool, a new feature that we recently released on MyHeritage, which we call DNA labels. And I believe we started rolling that out about 2 months ago. We added some improvements since, and today we're going to go over that. I'll explain what DNA labels are. I'm going to show you how you can work with them, how is it useful, and well, that's pretty much it. I'm going to spice it up with some examples on the way. So let's start. So what are DNA labels? I think that's the right way to start this. So DNA labels is a new tool that lets you organize your DNA matches using custom color-coded labels, which can help you gain more insights about your DNA matches and potentially break through some genealogical brick walls. So on MyHeritage, we're trying all the time to think of different tools and new options, which will make your lives easier when working with your DNA matches. And we think that labels are the right way to do that. These are like kind of groups that you can take your DNA matches and label them or tag them in a way that will make it easier for you to keep track of your research. And we'll show some examples along the way. But what are labels? What should you do with them? And how can they be broken down into? So there are different ways of how to use labels. Some use some of those that here are on the list, and some use all of them. Some have other ideas that I didn't mention here, because really the possibilities or the number of options of how to use labels is really up to you to decide. But the way most people use them is by creating labels by certain ancestor names, or by family lines, surnames that they're researching, breaking DNA matches into paternal and maternal. Some use them to mark DNA matches based on the position on the genome, where they have shared segments with those DNA matches. But really, as you'll see throughout the presentation, you can use them in any way that you'd like. So before we deep dive into labels on MyHeritage, let's talk about managing DNA matches on MyHeritage as a concept, because that's something that's bothering a lot of users, a lot of our customers, who are trying to work with their list of DNA matches and trying to make progress with the research. And there are different ways that we're doing. And the reason I'm talking about it so much, and I'm going to show mostly, like in all of my presentations, I'm going to show mostly my own results. So this is a screen capture I took today. And this is from the overview page of the product, the main entry point to the DNA section on MyHeritage. And as you can see here, I have today on MyHeritage 21,000 matches. That's a huge number. And so when people take a DNA test, they usually start with the DNA matches that are closer to them. They have more amount of shared DNA with them. That makes it a little bit easier, perhaps, to understand the exact relationship to these people. But also sometimes there are good DNA matches that can be, I'm saying that with doing quotes, but like hidden in some of the more distant pages of your DNA matches, like the match which is like on page 30 can be someone that can be interesting to you, or you can figure out how you could be related. So we're constantly trying to think of ways of how to take that amount of DNA matches and break them down to you in a way that'll be easier to find the ones which are most valuable, or you have better chances of understanding the exact relationship you have to them. So what we have today, these are older screen captures. So as you can see, the numbers have changed since I started, since I took those screen captures. More than doubled, as people test every day, and we have more people join the journey with us of DNA. So the list keeps on growing. So one way that we have today on the product, I'm going to go show a little bit of what we had up till labels, and then I'm going to switch to talk about labels. One of the options is that we're breaking down your DNA matches by relationships. How close are they to you? And we'll break those into 3 different circles. We call them of close family, extended family, and distant relatives. This is based on the amount of shared DNA you have with these people. So the close family goes up till first cousin. The extended family is from first cousin once removed to a third cousin, and then the distant relative are third cousins and more distant. So that's one way to look at your DNA matches. Another option is to filter them, excuse me, to filter them by where they currently live, where they reside in the world, by their country. So you can see this section right here, and I can see that back when I took this this screen capture, I had nearly 4,800 DNA matches who live in the United States and 214 who live in Canada, etc. So I can look at that. And also we were giving you a breakdown by their ethnicities. So you can look at their ethnicity results. And if, for example, I'm currently researching my Iberian side of the family, where I've the part of the branch of the family from which I inherited the Iberian ethnicity, I can click on that and see the 383 DNA matches that also have Iberian in their results. And when going to the DNA matches page, there are a few additional tools that we provide you with to help you manage or work with the list of DNA matches. This is an example I like to use in all of my presentations, in which I got the DNA match with Homer Simpson. And one of the options that we have today is to leave a note. You can leave a note on a DNA match, and you can write to yourself whatever you want. This is a private note, so in this case, Homer won't be able to see what I write for myself. And up till today, people use this area to write different things that they learn about their DNA matches, where they are from in the world, interesting information about their ancestors, just kind of left themselves some notes for like look at this DNA match later. And notes were used for that. More things that we provide is the option to filter your DNA matches list. And we'll give different options on how to filter them. So you can filter them by those who have a theory of family relativity. So that we have enough time to talk today about the DNA labels. I'm not going to go into each feature or tool here separately, but I can assure you that on this great platform, you can see all of my previous webinars in which I talk about each one of these features separately, so you can catch those in the library. But you can filter your DNA matches to see those with whom you have a theory of family relativity, those with whom you have a smart match, a shared surname, or a shared place. And the three additional filters we have here are similar to the ones we saw previously, to filter them by their relationship to you, the genetic relationship, whether they're close, extended, or distant, where they live in the world, as we saw previously, their ethnicity results, and also we added recently the genetic groups that they have in their results. That's also available, but not shown here in the screen capture. There's an option to sort the list. So by default, the list is sorted, showing you the people most close to you first. In this example right here, I'm looking at my own results, and I can see my father as the person who's the closest to me of all of my DNA matches. We share 50%. You can sort the list to look at the ones by the amount of shared segments that you have with them, by the largest segment, sort the list alphabetically, or sort it by the date in which the DNA match was found. So I can look at the newest ones first. Another option on this page is to search. So you can click on the magnifier glass or the search icon. And here you can type in a name of a DNA match or an ancestral surname. So I can put here, for example, Bloom. And all of my DNA matches will either have Bloom in their name, or an ancestor of them there's in the tree has the Bloom surname will come back, and the list will be shrink to show only these. Okay, so these are like kind of the tools that we have. We had up till DNA labels to work with the list of DNA matches and kind of like make an order in that long list and help you focus on the things that you want to look for. And DNA labels, I personally believe, is the perfect addition to those tools that we spoke about up till now, because it gives you much more flexibility in managing your DNA matches. So let's start with what labels are, how they look, what have we done on the website. And in addition to labels, we've made a couple of changes, so I'll go over these. First, we changed the user interface a bit, or the layout of how a DNA match card looks like. So this is a match with my father. This is how it used to look like up until we released DNA labels. You can see that the option to add a note was right here on the upper right corner. And we made a slight change. And what happened now, you might not notice it, but we added this left vertical panel here on the left side with a checkbox, a star icon, and the note moved to here. And it's not very dramatic, I think, for most of our users. Well, maybe you missed the note. Where did the note icon went? But it went just right here to the left. And I'll explain soon, once we start looking at labels, into why we did that. And it's basically to make more room for you to work with your DNA labels and to manage all of the things you want to do with your DNA matches on the left side. Labels is a big feature and a big tool that gives you, as I said, lots of flexibility into customizing your labels, giving them names and choosing colors. But one of the things that we decided to add as well is the option to mark a match as a favorite. So that's the icon right here. And you can just click on that and the match will be marked as a favorite, and you can do that for all of the DNA matches that you have. We added filtering options. I'll talk about them a bit later on, but you'll be able also later to filter your DNA matches to show only the ones which you marked as favorites. Favorite can be used in any way that you want. Some people use it to indicate a match that you found interesting and you want to mark it for yourself to look at it later. Some mark their close family members as favorites just because they like it. All options are good. We support each one of these. So favorites is one of the options, one of the new options we added as part of the release of DNA labels. All right. So now let's look at the DNA matches page. And I'm looking here at the results of my grandma. Again, I'm going to use examples only from my own close family members, from whom they granted me with permission to show their photos and names, to keep the privacy of my other DNA matches intact. So as you can see, the page slightly changed, and we can see that left panel that I spoke about right here on the left. And I think that we're pretty much ready to start creating labels and tagging DNA matches with the labels that we're creating. So the way to do that is to hit a checkbox that we added for each one of the DNA matches. So in this case, I'm going to choose my dad. And once I tick that button, a panel will be opened here on the right. This is the DNA labels management panel, we call it internally. There's a short explanation about what labels are with the option to create new labels. When you'll have labels, you'll see them right here. We'll see that soon. And I want to create a new label for my dad. So I'm hit the create new label option. And a pop-up will show, giving me the option to give that label a name. You can choose any name goes, any character you want to use is fine. We just put a limit of 100 characters so that just it's not too long. Looking at the examples of what people are creating, it's way more than enough. And then you can choose a color. The color will be tagged to the DNA match, and you'll be able to see that in various places on the website. So choose a color that you like and that makes sense to the type of label that you're creating. So I think that in this case, I just decided to call this label paternal matches, and I chose this nice blue hue color, and I hit save. And what you can see now is that a new label was created, the paternal matches, and I'm about to label Rafael Snir, my dad, as a paternal match. And I can hit apply. And that's it. Now I have a new label created called paternal matches, labeled, I chose the color, the blue color, the light blue color, and you can see an indication right here next to my dad in the left panel that we added that this DNA match is labeled. Colors are great, but sometimes people don't remember what they actually indicate. So if you hover with your mouse over that colored dot, you'll be able to see the name that you've given to that DNA to that label. I'm sorry. So that's pretty nice. And I've created my first label, and I've associated my dad with the paternal matches group that I created. All right, I think we're ready to create a new label now. And I'm going to choose myself this time. And you can see that I'm about to label Ran Snir as, and I have the option to label him as a paternal match, the group that I already created, or create a new label. But what I can do, and an option that we added here, is the option to label multiple DNA matches in one click to a certain label or to more than one label. So in this case right here, I chose myself and I chose my brother Shai. We're both selected. And the text here indicates that I'm about to label 2 DNA matches as. Now I don't want to label them as paternal matches. I want to create a new label. So I'm going to choose that. And I decided to create a new label called grandsons and chose the orange color in this case. And here it's added to the list. And I can hit apply. And now you can see that both myself and my brother are tagged with the orange label, which I called grandsons. The examples in the presentation, the difficulty of doing DNA presentations and keeping the privacy of my DNA matches is that some of the examples don't make lots of sense in the form of how people do genealogy research, but we'll have more of that later on. The entire concept that I'm trying to show here is how to use it. And that was an example of how I can take multiple DNA matches and associate them to the same label. So up till now, we created 2 labels. We associated my dad to one of them and myself and my brother to another one. But you can associate a DNA match to more than one label. For example, if I want to tag one DNA match as paternal, but I also want to tag him as has ancestors in Germany. So that's also a valid option. I'll need 2 labels for that, and I'll just need to tag him. So let's see how I do that. So in this case, I chose all 3 of us, and the panel opened up, and I can see the 2 labels that I created. The list of labels, by the way, is sorted alphabetically, so you can see the grandsons before the paternal matches. And you can see a new indication here with the minus sign. We called it the partial status. Every time you're going to select few DNA matches, we're going to show you here an indication of all of your labels, what's common to all of them. So in this case, I chose 3 DNA matches that don't have a label that's common to all of them. My dad has the paternal matches, and myself and my brother are in the grandsons. So not all 3 of us are associated with the same label. And that's why we see this partial state right here. And what I created here is that I created a new label, and I called it the sneer surname. I want to tag DNA matches who has sneer in their surname. And I chose all 3 of us. I created a new label. And now I can hit apply, and you can see that all 3 of us now are associated with the new label that I created. So as you can see, the number of options is really, we support up to 30 different labels per DNA kit that you manage. So I can create 30 labels for the kit that I manage for my grandma, as we see here, and I can create 30 different labels for other DNA kits that I have on MyHeritage. So in this example right here, I already created 3 different labels, and I've associated 3 DNA matches to separate labels. Taking a break now from my own personal examples, something more from the design. Here you can see an example of someone who was added to, I didn't count, I think there are 7 here, plus to 19 different labels. So really you can, if you created 30 labels, you can associate any DNA match to all 30 of them. We'll show you the 7 of them right here with the colors, and then an indication of how many more labels this DNA match is tagged with. All right. Let's move on. So now I'm choosing myself and my dad, and you can see here now it's another example of how this panel behaves. So when I chose my dad and myself, I have both of us are already tagged with the sneer surname, and that's why we have this checked. But only one of us is tagged with the paternal matches, and only one of us is tagged with the grandsons. And I can play with these settings also to remove, for example, if I tick the paternal matches once, this is what I did here. I tick this box. Now I have the option to apply, and basically what it'll do is it'll take all of the DNA matches selected and will add to them the paternal match if it's not already there. If I hit apply now, I will also be tagged with the paternal matches labels. If I hit it again, that means remove the association from this label. So if in this case now I will hit apply, my father will be deassociated, or the tag will be removed from the paternal matches label for my dad. What else can you do with labels after you've created them? So in some of the cases we give our labels names, and then later on we want to refine them, or we want to change the color. So there's the option to edit them, and once you hit the edit, you will see again this pop-up that you've seen before, which will give you the options to change the name or to change the color. That will affect all of the DNA matches associated, obviously. So the tags will not be removed, but the name will obviously will be reflected in all of them, and the color indication will change accordingly. So I can choose to call this now my favorite grandsons and change it to the purple color, and then you'll see that the change affected. You'll see the color, the dotted color here for myself and for my brother will be purple with the new name. If you decided that you want to delete a label because you no longer need it, or because you don't need it anymore, you can hit the delete button, or you want to start fresh. That's another reason why people delete their labels. So you can click on the delete icon, and you will get kind of like a warning pop-up telling you that if you delete this label, all of the DNA matches associated with it, the association will be removed, as the label will no longer exist. So if I'll delete grandsons now, the indication will also disappear from myself and for my brother, which is the case. Okay, so we looked about how to create labels, and how to associate DNA matches, either one of them or multiple of them at a time, to one or more labels using the panel on the right. But what can you do with it later? So that's great. And what we did is that we also gave you the option, after you've done that, to filter your list of DNA matches by labels. For example, I want to see all of the DNA matches who I tagged as paternal matches. So another change we did is to change the user interface of how the filters look like. What you see now is a screen capture taken from about 3 months ago, before we had labels. And in order to make room, because we have so many different filtering options today on MyHeritage, which is great and gives much more flexibility again for you, we changed it slightly. And now you will see them as each one of them stands alone with a nice icon. So all of the options we had before are still here. You still have the options to filter by the tree details, the relationships, the location, ethnicities, and genetic groups, but we've also added a new option to filter by the labeling association. So if I'm looking again at the list of DNA matches and I hit the labels option, it will open up and give me the option to filter by the favorites. You remember that nice star we had before, or by the different labels that I created. So for example, if I want to look only at the DNA matches who I already labeled as grandsons, I will choose that, hit apply, and the list will show me now only the ones which are labeled with that grandson's label. There's also an option to multi-select, so I want to look now at all of the DNA matches who either tagged with grandsons or paternal matches. I have the option to select both, hit apply, and I will see them. The condition here, the logic behind this filtering option, is whether they have at least one of them and not both. So up till now, we looked at my grandma's kit. I also added the option to look at my own. I took a screen capture of the labels that I created for myself, just to give you an idea of how I'm using it. So you can see here the labels that I created so far. And you can see here on the right, I created a maternal label, a paternal label, a label I like to call check later. It just helps me when I'm busy and I don't have enough time to look into each one of the DNA matches and review their family trees or go over all of the different features and information that we provide on MyHeritage. So sometimes I just label them quickly with check later. I come back when I have time. I use the filtering options. I take the labels filtering option. I choose the check later, and I'm just going over them one by one. That makes my life much easier if I'm finding those DNA matches interesting for me to use them later. The ones you see here are different. These are couples of ancestors of mine, Abram and Chama Lifshitz, Benjamin and Chati, Fritz and Charlotte. So these are ancestors of mine who I'm trying to understand how other DNA matches might be related to me through those pairs of ancestors. And I'll show an example soon of how I'm using that. I also created labels in ancestors in Bulgaria, Russia, and Turkey. These are places in the world where I have ancestors who came from. And when I'm looking at certain DNA matches and I see that they have ancestors in Russia, so I just immediately tick them and I label them with ancestors in Russia, and later I filter the list to look at different DNA matches and whether they're from Russia. And as I mentioned before, I can also merge or look at DNA matches who both are from Russia and are from my paternal side and are probably related to me through Abram and Chama Lifshitz. So I can add all these tags, and that will kind of like point me in the right direction in my research, trying to understand how these people are related to me. I'm also creating labels by surnames. So when I have a DNA match who's interesting for me, and I see a surname I know, I tag them with that surname. And then later again, I filter the list to look at all of the DNA matches I tagged with this label. And I can have a quick overview of DNA matches who all have Rosenstein surname in their last name, for example. Sometimes that's easier than using the search option I spoke about before, because these are matches I already looked at and I decided to label them. I decided they're important enough and I want to look at that, for example, Rosenstein surname they have. So there's just an example of how list of labels can look like. And up till now, we spoke mostly or pretty much only about how to use labels on the DNA matches page, creating labels, associating DNA matches to labels, and then filtering the list to look at the ones you already tagged. But a lot of the goodies are found in the review DNA match page. And that's actually one of the places where you can make the most value of the new DNA labels addition. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So when you'll go to your review DNA match page, here again, I'm looking at the kit I managed for my grandma, and I'm looking at her DNA match with my dad. And we also added the option to label and create labels from the review DNA match page that can be found here in the top right corner. You'll find the favorite icon as usual. And then this icon right here, the tag icon or the label icon, it's slightly different than the checkbox we had in the previous page, because in the DNA matches page, you have the option to select multiple DNA matches. And in this case, we're talking about just one. I just want to label Rafael, my dad, the DNA match I'm looking at. So you can, again, mark a favorite or remove from favorites, by the way, is done also by clicking again, and the DNA match will be removed from the favorites. Or you can click on the labels icon right here, and the panel that we saw before will open up again, showing you the labels that you already created, giving you the option to label your DNA matches or create new label right from here. It's, in most cases, when you look at the review DNA match page, that's where you'll see the information that kind of goes with how labels are used. So here you'll be able to see, again, the theory of family relativity, or you'll find smart matches that can indicate to which branch of your family tree this DNA match might be related through. You will see the list of surnames and places. So this is a good place where you can do that and create new labels right from here. So here I'm going to tag my dad as a paternal match, hit apply, and the icon will be added here. The indication, I can hover over that and see the name. This is an example of a different review DNA match page, and you can see that when you're adding more labels, when you're associating the DNA match with more labels, they will show up horizontally like we show here, unlike vertically, which we've shown you in the previous page. But I think the best part of DNA labels and the smartest way to use them is using the shared DNA matches component. Shared DNA matches, as a reminder, let's look at an example, are people who are matched both with myself and with the DNA match I'm currently looking at. So in this case right here, I'm looking at my grandma's kit, and I'm seeing my dad. I'm looking at her DNA match with my dad. You can see the labels that are already associated with him right here. You have the option to click this icon and to associate again as you go down the page. This floating bar will follow you as you go down the page. And when I'm looking at the shared DNA matches, I can see myself because I match my grandmother and I match my father. I can see my brother, which is the same case, and I can see my daughter right here, who also matching both my dad and my grandma. And what we've changed here, unlike what it was before, is again, we gave more room for the favorites and the labels. So if the DNA match, the shared DNA match, is already tagged with a label, you'll see that indication right here. So because in the DNA matches page before, we already created two labels and we've associated myself and my brother to those labels, you'll see an indication right here that we're already associated with these labels. On the top right corner, as I mentioned before, you'll see the indications, and here you'll see the information about the shared DNA matches. If you don't remember the names, again, just hover over the dot, over the color dot, and you'll see a tooltip showing you what's the name of the label. You can again mark and unmark as a favorite using those buttons right here. And if you'll tick the check boxes that we've added next to each one of the shared DNA matches, the panel will open up. And what you're doing now is actually labeling your shared DNA matches. Remember, these are people who also appear in your DNA matches list, right? So when I'm looking at my dad, and for example, I want to decide now that I want to tag these DNA matches as paternal matches, I now have the option. By clicking on them, and ticking the checkbox here on the right, and then associating with them with that label. So that's very useful. And let's talk about a real example using a more distant relative of mine, and why the shared DNA matches is so important and so useful when working with DNA labels. So this is my second cousin once removed. Her name is Edie. In one of my webinars, I'm telling the story of how I got to know her. I didn't know her before taking a DNA test. The family, that branch of the family, we kind of lost connection, lost the ties, and people migrated to different places around the world after World War II and the Holocaust. And I didn't know about her existence. We didn't know much about that side of the family, but there's a whole different story, long one, about how I was able, using the help of my aunt, understand the exact relationship to Edie. But that's for a different webinar. Again, you're more than welcome to go back and watch. But Edie, after I was able to figure out how Edie and I are related, I was able to understand that our common ancestors, our most recent common ancestors, are that couple right there at the top. What I'm showing you here, by the way, a little bit of marketing work from my side to a colleague of mine, Uri Gonen, from the product team, who recently redesigned the relationship diagram on MyHeritage. So now it's much easier to take any individual that exists that appears in your family tree and get a very nice printable version of how exactly you are related to one another. So I used that earlier today to create the relationship diagram between myself and Edie. And myself and Edie are related through those couple right there, Benjamin and Chati Rosenstein. They are our most recent common ancestors. And the reason that Edie and I are genetically related is because both of us inherited DNA from Benjamin and Chati that was passed down throughout the generations, and we still have a decent amount of their DNA that we're carrying on. And that's great, knowing how Edie and I are related, of course, but that also gives some more information that I can use for other DNA matches. So the key when doing genetic genealogy is using reference points, right? Taking 1 or 2 or 3 DNA matches that you know what's your exact relationship to them. And if you know how you are related to them, and you're looking at your shared DNA matches, people who you share DNA with and they share DNA with, you can, in many cases, that's an indication that the DNA you're sharing with them was inherited to them through the same couple or more distant to them, right? More generations up the tree. But that's the direction you need to pursue. So when I had my DNA match with Edie, and when I was able to figure out the exact relationship between myself and Edie, I went ahead and I created a label. And I tagged Edie with that label. That label is called Benjamin and Chati Rosenstein. So this is the name of the ancestor couple who are our most recent common ancestors. In this case, a couple. Some DNA was inherited from Benji, and some DNA was inherited from Chati. And that's how me and Edie are related. So I created that label, and I immediately tagged Edie with that label, and it shows on the DNA matches page and on the review match page, as we've seen before. But now when I'm looking at the list of shared DNA matches, so because I've tested a lot of family members on my side, I can see here my mom and my daughter and my brother and my aunt. So those people I know how I'm related to. I can still tag them with the Benjamin and Chati Rosenstein. In some way that's true. I'm related, well, all these people are sharing some amount of shared DNA with Chati and Benjamin Rosenstein, if they were still alive today. But I know how I'm related to them, so I decided not to label them. But as I scroll down the list and I'm looking at other DNA matches, I see here names. I changed all of the names here, again, to keep the privacy of my DNA matches. But I can see DNA matches who I know nothing about. I don't know how I'm related to these people. Up till now, I didn't know. And I can see Kenneth Brown and Piotr Levy and Jessica Armstrong. And I can decide now, because they are shared DNA matches and they appear both on the list of DNA matches for myself and for Edie, and there's genetic similarities between the two of us, I can now take these 3 people who I didn't know much about up till now. I'll mark them the way I'm doing it here. I'll choose to tag them with Benjamin and Chati Rosenstein label, hit apply, and now all of them are labeled with Benjamin and Chati Rosenstein, and that's really good to know. And that will be reflected also on the DNA match page when I look at them. When I'll go back now and I'll filter the list, and I'll say, hey, can you show me all the people with who are related to me through Benjamin and Chati Rosenstein, or in other words, people I tagged as related to me through Benjamin and Chati Rosenstein. I'll get a short list of people, and I can look at them now one by one and try to find the similarities between the 3. So I can work or manage my DNA matches as we started this presentation with. I can manage the list of DNA matches to look at a more focused side or more focused section of my DNA matches who all have something in common, and that makes it much easier now to, when I'm doing my research and I want to look at DNA matches who are related through one side of the family and try to see which types of information I can take from the review match page of each one of them, for example. That's much easier now because I have the option to filter them and look at them and tag them with more labels if I want, and kind of like better manage my research on MyHeritage using the tools that we provide. So when labeling DNA matches, where can you get ideas? How can you decide which labels to create and which DNA matches to associate to different labels? So there are many ways on MyHeritage to do that. We looked at how I'm doing that with shared DNA matches, as in the example I showed with Edie. You can do the same looking at shared ancestral surnames. You find a surname you find interesting. You create a label for that by the surname, as I did with Bloom, for example. And then you have the option to filter your DNA matches who were all labeled with that surname. Same can go to an ancestral place, as I showed. I'm looking at DNA matches with ancestors who were born or lived at some point in Germany. So that's also an option to tag them. Autoclusters is a great tool that we have on MyHeritage that takes your DNA matches and breaks them down into groups showing people matched to one another and probably related through an ancestor or a couple of ancestors. So that's great. I can create the autocluster report, and there's a separate webinar I did on that. Again, you're more than welcome to join to watch it. It's recorded and available on the library on this website. And I can take all of the DNA matches who ended up in a cluster, create a label for them, and now research them now and later by that. Chromosome Browser. A lot of people are mapping their genome and their chromosomes into which parts, which segments in their DNA they inherited from each ancestor. And you can use the Chromosome Browser, which is a very powerful tool that we have on MyHeritage, to kind of like find positions on the chromosomes and label them with the name of ancestor or suspected name of ancestor who you believe you inherited that part of DNA from, and tag your DNA matches by that. And of course, by family trees and pedigree charts and names that you find interesting, or people that you see that repeat in different family trees of your DNA matches, and you find that in common and you want to look into that. That's another option how to do that, and creating labels by those names or by those family trees, and later filter your list to look at them. And again, manage your research in a way that will make it easier for you to work with your DNA matches and make better progress with your research. And I believe that this is it from my side with the presentation. I'll just say to conclude that it's been very fun, to be honest, for me and for my amazing talented team of developers and designers and quality assurance engineers working on this feature. It's very colorful, so we enjoyed working on the colors. Just choosing those 30 colors was, well, some will say challenging, some will say fun. But since we launched it, we're following those who are using it, and we see that it's making life easier for so many of our users. And we're happy to see that you're using it in such a way. We have more plans of doing more things like that in the future and expanding labels to more areas in the DNA domain. And with that, I will conclude. And thank you very much. We can open it up for questions, I think.
And thank you.
Jeff,
Yeah.
you're around.
Thank you, Ren. It's not often that well, let me just say this. How wonderful it is to learn straight from the person in charge of developing DNA labels. It's been very enjoyable and educational. So thanks to you, Ran, and thanks to all of you out there who are writing in with your comments and your questions. And you're right, Sharon, who says, I love how MyHeritage keeps adding more and more tools that are so helpful. So thanks, Sharon, for sharing that. Well, Ran, what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to my screen and let's do a couple of door prizes, and then we'll get to the audience questions. I hope that you will join us for our upcoming live webinars. Next will be by Mike Mansfield on new records on MyHeritage. And then to start out February, we'll learn from Tal Ehrlichman on what's new in the MyHeritage photo world. And then Ran talked about Uri Gonen about printing charts and books on MyHeritage. And so just sign up for these, and we will see you live at 2 p.m. Eastern U.S. time on those Tuesdays. So let's first do a 1-year MyHeritage complete plan as a door prize. So the complete plan gives you access to everything with what Ran has talked about here today, plus the premium, plus family site subscription, plus access and anytime access to all 16 billion plus historical records anytime. So let me go to our random door prize picker tool and find our winners. So first winner here today is, looks like Heidi Hanks. So Heidi, congratulations. I hope that was fun to hear your name live on the air here. Just watch for an email from us at MyHeritage soon. And then next we're going to give away a DNA test kit. So we'll give this and say congratulations to Sheila Bursey. So Sheila, you've got the DNA kit coming your way. Okay, Ran, are you ready for some questions?
Absolutely.
All right. Ran, there's been a couple of questions that many people asked the same thing, so let's go first to Joe, who we see out on the MyHeritage user group on Facebook. Joe asks, I manage DNA kits for family members. At some point, will we be able to import the labels from one kit to another kit that we manage?
Yes, that's something that we're considering. The reason we didn't want to duplicate that or kind of like copy the labels from one to another is because many people who manage DNA kits on MyHeritage for other people, what they do is that for example, I manage my own kit and I manage my wife's kit.
Yeah.
And obviously all of the surnames and the ancestor names and they're irrelevant when I'm looking at her kit, doing the research for her. And that's the reason why we decided to separate them. We do plan to give the option of importing labels between different kits that you manage.
Great. Okay, thank you. Lillian is excited. She says, thank you so much. I learned I have a new cousin who created DNA labels. I hope to one day learn how we are connected. Thanks, Lillian. And Joe writes in saying, excellent. Best tool so far. Yeah, Rand, you've done some amazing things, and people are saying that this is the finest tool so far. I remember being so excited about the Chromosome Browser. And it still is wonderful. Okay,
Thank you.
Lisa says, is it possible, do you think, to even run out of colors for your labels? What happens if we get to that point?
Yes, I know. So it's never enough, right? So when we started thinking about like to what number to limit the number of labels that you can create. First of all, I can tell you after there are some fun stories. One day I'll probably write a book about it. But sitting down and trying to find 30 colors is very challenging. I felt like kind of like I'm back in the kindergarten, and I have that box of the
Color
the
crayons.
colors and
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So we decided to keep it to 30. Uh, Perhaps we'll change that in the future, but yes, currently the limit is 30. And if
Okay.
you've got 30, you can delete a label and you can create a new one instead.
Okay. Thank you.
Um, yeah. Actually, it's 31 if you count the favorites. So,
Oh, right, right.
all right. So, yeah.
Okay, very good. A few have asked about this. If we label one of our DNA matches, will that person who is our DNA match be able to see that label that we make?
No, it's similar to notes. The genealogical research that you're doing is kept for yourself. Similar to notes, when you write a note, it's kept private, and your DNA match can create his own 30 labels and tag DNA matches as he wants. Um, yeah,
Yep. Okay.
so that's yours. You can share the information with them if you decide to contact them and tell them, hey, I see that I believe that we're related through my ancestors, Hati and Benjamin Rosenstein, for example, but he won't be able to see either the labels that you created nor the tagging.
Okay. Thank you. Sheila asks, is there a plan to add a select all button or checkbox so you can just select all of the matches?
Yes, this is something that we're considering adding also in the DNA matches page per page and in the shared DNA matches. The problem with that is that in most cases you'd like to look at them one by one, and the shared DNA matches list can be huge, and you'll just end up with a huge list of DNA matches labeled not necessarily right. So we're still thinking about whether that's the right addition to add.
Okay. It's fun to hear the behind the scenes of what you're thinking, Ran. So I appreciate you sharing this with us. Uh, a few have asked this question: Can you filter out those who have no labels? In other words, Fran says, so you can see all of those that you have not yet labeled.
To be honest, that doesn't exist today, but that's a good idea.
Hmm.
Well, I'm writing it down.
Okay. Yeah, if you're new here and you haven't been here with the MyHeritage webinar series previously, you're learning that this is where MyHeritage writes down your ideas. So it's fun to be part of this research and development team here live. Let's see. So here's an idea for a possible label, and let's tell Rich if this is possible. So Rich has an ancestral town, and so he's wondering, would it be possible to add a label for this town and to use that label for other people that are from the exact same town? Would that be a use of using these labels?
Absolutely, definitely. If I can tell you, for example, that I tried doing that, it just was a bit difficult. But my father, they were moved. He was born in Riga, Latvia, but my paternal side is mostly from a little town called Varaklani in Latvia. And I created such label just for Varaklani, and I was trying to look at the DNA matches who had those that place. It showed on their shared ancestral places, and I tagged them. And well, it's great if I know people that had ancestors in Latvia, and it's great if I can see that they were from the capital Riga. But if I see few DNA matches who had ancestors in Varaklani, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So definitely, it's a good use. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Rich, for that idea. Celia is wondering. It sounds like she wants to print out a legend, so she knows what colors are associated with what labels, and I don't know, tape it on her wall next to her computer, maybe. Is that possible? Can you print out such a legend, or or maybe we just type that up? What are your thoughts there?
That's a really cute idea. The list is always visible to you, right? If you tick the checkbox, you'll see the panel opens up and you can hover again and see the names. But yes,
Yeah.
you can pretty much take a screen capture of your screen and print that. Also, one thing that I didn't mention and we also added, there's the option to export your list of DNA matches to an Excel file. That's something that we had way before. But what we added is a new column, and every DNA match that is labeled, that information will also appear there. So you'll be able to see the names of those labels. But yes, the idea of exporting a list with the color and it's on our minds. It crossed our minds.
Okay. Yeah,
Of giving
Heather.
some printable option of the panel, let's call it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and Heather, I was just going to ask you what you just answered. So yeah, thanks so much. So you can export your list, and yes, Heather, that list can include those labels. So very good. Arnis is wondering, are there any plans, or is this possible already, to use Boolean logic for the filtering, like the and or not parameters?
So that's kind of like continuing the question before of show me all the DNA matches who are not labeled. I wrote it down. It'll
Okay.
go on the request list.
Okay, great.
The growing request list.
I love it. And so does the audience. Margaret wonders, she says she can only view 10 matches at a time. Is there any way to increase that, or or load all of them all on the same screen?
So in the DNA matches page, you have the option at the bottom of the screen. You can choose what would you like to set as the default, whether to see 10, 25, or 50 DNA matches per page. One thing that I didn't show in my presentation, and thank you for that question, is that if you're on page 1 and you're selecting 3 DNA matches and you move to a different page, that selection will remain.
Oh, good.
So you can choose those three people, move to the second page, choose 2 more people. Now you have 5. You can go to page number 10, choose 5 more people. Now you have, I lost count, 10, 15, I can remember. Anyway, your selection doesn't go away. We keep that with you as you browse through the different pages. And once you selected all of the DNA matches you want to tag, you can select them and then hit apply.
Yeah,
choose the right labels and hit apply. So yeah, we do support that. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, very good. So, Ran, you mentioned to us that the labels are displayed in alphabetical order in the Manage Labels form. On the left-hand side, when we're just seeing the colors, are those colors shown alphabetically according to the label?
Yes. Well, the ones that you've added, right? So
Yes.
if I have
Okay.
2 labels, they'll be sorted alphabetically.
Okay.
Correct.
So Steve, that answers your question there. Well, very good. So Ran, we've got, I mean, really, we've got hundreds of questions in here, but not enough day to address all of them. Where could a person that's here go to learn more about MyHeritage specific questions that they continue to have?
So there are so many places. One of them is the great platform we're currently on. More than invited to look at the library. We have so many different webinars that we've done with Jeff about DNA and about other stuff that we do on MyHeritage. I would also highly recommend checking the help center of MyHeritage and also visiting the educational center that we built. All these are available if you're logging into I can give the URLs or the addresses as well, but you can go to myheritage.com, log in, and then in the top right corner of the screen, You'll have the option under help, and you'll get to the knowledge base or to the help center, and you can find all the information you want there. Also, for each one of the new features that we're rolling out, we're compiling a blog post, and on MyHeritage we invest a lot in these blog posts, which gives a very detailed overview of what the feature is, how it can be used, how to use it. So you're more than welcome to look at that.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that blog is one that I make sure to check a couple of times a week at least. There's another one that I thought of, Ran, is this MyHeritage users group over on Facebook, and so if you have a question, it looks like it's up to 16,000 members there now. But often, if you have a question there's a lot of people that are anxious to help you. So I've just put that link in your chat area as well. Well, Ran, it's been really enjoyable to learn from you here today, and we hope to always be able to learn from you as often as we can. But thanks for sharing your time with us. Ran, any final thoughts or parting words before we do say goodbye?
I'll just, as usual, Jeff, thank you so much for the opportunity. And it's such fun doing those webinars and talking to the people. We're exchanging. We have a middleman, a great one though, but hearing your thoughts and getting your feedback and seeing you use the things that we get up in the morning to work on for you, it's always fun. And we promise to keep on innovating and keep on adding new tools for you to make your lives easier and help you make more fascinating discoveries on MyHeritage. And I can't wait for the next time.
Well, Ran, you and team really do make a difference in all of our lives, so we thank you. Okay, and we thank all of you wherever and whenever you are around the world. Thanks all of you for sharing part of your day with us. And remember, life is short. Do genealogy first. Bye, everyone. Bye, Ran. Have a good
Bye-bye.
night. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.